Hello, Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Power Lounge. This is your place to hear authentic conversations from those who have power to share. My name is Amy Vaughn, and I am the owner and Chief Empowerment Officer of Together Digital. We are a diverse and collaborative community of women who work in digital and choose to share our knowledge, power, and connections. If you don't know much about us and you want to learn more, you can visit our website at www.togetherindigital.com. And today we are talking about the future of work. Our guest, Valerie Jacobs, is always analyzing change. Her major focus is the shifting landscape of our work. After some big transitions, you might have heard about them: COVID, work from anywhere culture, a new emphasis on EQ or emotional quotient. She's helping to draw the roadmap for growth in 2023. From calibrating your relationship with work to finding your native genius. Valerie serves as the brand and innovation consultancy chief growth officer, driving a consistent state of evolution within LPK and the industry, overseeing business development, external relations, and ongoing creation of an expansion of capabilities that give way to innovation, new offerings for clients. And over 15 years of leadership at LPK, she founded the LPK's Trends and Foresight practice, providing clients with a deeper, future-forward customer understanding while establishing a clear point of difference for the consultancy. You have such a fantastic legacy in the work that you've done, Valerie. I'm so glad to have you here with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Oh gosh, Amy, thank you for having me. You know that Together Digital is like so near and dear to my heart, mostly because I think our ethos, I don't know, what's the plural of ethos? Ethi, I don't know.
Right?
So
Sounds right.
aligned. Like we just believe the same things, giving and sharing your power, your knowledge. And so I just always love being with your group because the energy and vibe is amazing.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. You always meet us where we are in our energy, 110%. In fact, Valerie recently gave a talk on this topic specifically, and I was lucky enough to be able to be in attendance for it at our Cincinnati Together Digital chapter event, after which I immediately approached her about coming on to the podcast to share some of these highlights with our listeners, because it really felt like the kind of information at the start of a new year after several hard years. Something that we all needed to hear. So before we jump right into the future, let's set the stage for everyone a little bit. Valerie, despite being a futurist, I love how you frame up the here and the now. I think it's one of your many, many skills and amazing talents. Can you speak a little bit on this idea that you had shared with us on this state of prolonged crisis, and also what you called a polyglobal crisis?
Yes. So I think, Amy, thanks for kind of that setup, because there are some, what I would call trend mechanics, if you will, like the TikTok of trends that sort of underlie the practice. So one is trends are on a continuum 99% of the time. It's like an evolution over time. In many ways, it can be like a pendulum that swings between extremes. And so I think what we've been in is an extreme of one end that makes all of these crises feel more disruptive than normal, right? Because they were kind of, it was like a 20-car pileup, right? It started out with COVID. Not too long after that, we had George Floyd's death, all of the social justice and uprising that occurred then. Go into the summer with that. We come into the fall with these like a very, very radical election cycle that culminated in 2021 in the January 6th insurrection. And, in that case, those were all sort of linear crises that like piled up on each other. But I think underneath those crises, there were other things happening. And in addition to them, like extreme weather patterns, the supply chain issues, then you get the war in Ukraine. And now we're in sort of this global poly crisis where instead of these crises kind of coming in chunks, they are now causally intertwined, which means they're even worse. And so it significantly degrades humanity's prospects when you get into a poly crisis where it's sort of like they're just so intertwined, it's hard to deal with them.
Right. Yeah. It's like, how do you even pick? What are we going to stress out the most about today? Pick one. There's a number.
And we're in crisis fatigue is, I think,
Yes.
where what happens is like, this is the big picture world we're all living in. And we have crisis fatigue from this. And I mean, think about even so far in the end of 2022, early 2023, all of these weather events that we're having that are really disrupting our lives, even when we're trying to catch our breaths and get back at it.
Right. No, 100%. Yeah. And I think crisis fatigue is such a great way, again, to just frame up what it is that we've all been experiencing collectively over the last few years. And obviously that probably attributes quite a bit to burnout, I would assume.
Oh, yes.
Everyone's claiming and feeling, obviously.
Oh, yeah. It's anxiety, exhaustion, burnout, and the statistics are really kind of shocking, because you've got people saying like half of the people are just like, I'm exhausted. Like 50% report on a survey. And I think people are even underreporting,
Oh, sure.
Anxiety and depression are up 25% since 2020. And I think people don't believe that whatever is on the other side of this, which I think we're still working our way toward, 78% of people feel like that normal life will not look like it did coming up into 2019. And so I think there's just a lot going on. And, I like to borrow and really dig into like the literature, what's going on socially and culturally. And so this is sort of the backdrop within which we're now working. And some of the things from work are contributing to how we feel. And some of the feelings about our broader life are contributing to how we show up at work. 100%. And I think one of the things that I referenced in my talk was that I'm borrowing from Brené Brown. She had an amazing podcast that she published at the end of, kind of towards the end of 2020. It was her just having an impromptu conversation with Simon Sinek, who wrote Start With Why, and Adam Grant, who's written, his latest book is called Think Again. And the three of them were just sort of like comparing notes. Like, they are consultants, they go into companies, they're talking to people all the time. And Brené Brown coined this term that I think is perfect for where we are right now, the great awkward.
Yeah.
It's sort of like everybody figuring it all out at once. And we don't know what's going on.
And it's not comfortable and it's not easy.
No.
Yeah, I agree. And all three of those folks, I mean, I know a lot of our members listen to and read a lot of their podcasts, like work with Adam Grant, and have read Simon Sinek's books. So and Brené, of course, we're all huge Brené fans. So, their commentary obviously is highly regarded and very valued, because they're not just there speculating, they are deep in the work of observing what's happening within the organizations and within our societies. So while the qualitative and even quantitative data looks pretty ick, when you want to break down your ability to own the way that we work, the way that you set it up in your talk was phenomenal, and you encouraged us to meet the moment. So I want to talk about those three ways in which we can start to meet the moment, so that we are kind of shaping and creating what the future of work is versus letting it own and shape us.
Exactly. And the way that I was thinking about it in the biggest picture, when I said meet the moment, I was thinking about it as three kind of distinctive and nuanced moments. One is meet the moment, the big M, like what I would call the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. Like, we have to meet the culture at large vibe. And you're like, this is what's happening, and how are you going to show up in this culture? You're part of the culture. The second one is sort of, how do you meet each and every moment? Meaning, are you spending your time the right way? And then there's sort of maybe a more spiritual version, which is, how do you meet this moment, like the present moment? And how do you take care of yourself in that breath by breath way? So that was kind of my big picture, is like, there's a cultural piece that we need to all be aware of. Then there's sort of the thing that we're in control of, which is how we spend our days. And then there's what are we really here for?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Read the room, control what you can, which is your response. Yeah. And then chart your course from there. I love it. So what were some of those kind of key elements that we talked about normalizing the conversation? How about that one? Let's dig into that a little.
Yeah, great. One of the things that was also the podcast was called, I think, What's Happening at Work, and it's a two-parter. And I loved what you said, because all three of these people are researchers, but they're ethnographers without saying it. Like you said, this is coming from their experiences. And what they said they're seeing in companies is people might be reporting that they're doing great, but these are self-reported surveys that they're telling their employers, right? And they're like, hey, tell their employers the truth in these surveys. These people fire them, think they're not performing their job. So they said, basically, no one's actually talking about this in a way with true vulnerability. And where there is vulnerability, it's probably happening peer to peer.
Yep.
In employees, and maybe peer to peer in leadership circles.
Yep.
But never the twain shall meet. And they say, as long as these conversations and the vulnerability is happening in the pockets, that likely both groups are going to blame each other for things not getting better or for the way they are. So they're saying normalizing the conversation is us all being able to show up and say, I'm not okay. Then there's kind of likely some extremes, because there are people who like rethought their lives, recalibrated things, that are thriving now and doing great. Those people feel it is insensitive to be happy and joyful.
Yeah.
They don't want their feelings of awesomeness to be conflated with toxic positivity.
Right.
And they also don't want to take things away from the people who might be struggling. So I think there's a lot going on, what I would call under the hood.
Yep.
It's a lot of not talking to each other. And they're saying, what you've got to do is normalize the conversation. But the key to what I think, and I think this was Simon Sinek who said it, he said, look, there's opportunity here, because hopefully what this will do is bring us all to a place where we can learn to listen, simply hold space for each other, and resist the urge to fix. And that is bringing, next topic, a lot of emotional intelligence to things.
Right.
Like that resist the urge to fix part is actually maybe the part we struggle with. Like we want to make other feel good. We want to make ourselves feel better. And, part of this normalizing the conversation is just like being with it, with each other.
Being with that great awkwardness, as you mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Yes. Sitting in it.
Right. So we've talked a little bit about EQ recently. In fact, we recorded a podcast about emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, and leadership, because it is such a striking, it is a balance, and it isn't the way leadership is typically seen, nor taught, nor modeled, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, it is a big challenge in the sense of, learning how to leverage your emotional intelligence to just be present in the mucky and the mess instead of trying to fix. It is a challenge for sure. I think for a lot of us, because that's how we're groomed, that's how we're trained, that's how we're conditioned from a societal standpoint. We've even talked about in the past in a podcast about human giver syndrome, how especially women who fall into the role of caretakers, we will bend and change anything and everything about ourselves and the way that we do things and the way that we talk to make other people more comfortable. So we become a human giver versus a human being. And so, yes, I love the fact that EQ is kind of becoming a bigger topic for us, kind of in, like, it's helping to normalize that conversation and hopefully create that vulnerable space that we need. The next thing I want you to chat with everybody about was this idea of crystallized intelligence, because I feel as women grow in their careers, especially in digital, you come of a certain age and all of a sudden you think, I am no longer relevant. Exactly. Not true. When you explained crystallized intelligence, I'm like, every single woman needs to hear this.
Yeah. So just a couple of thoughts on EQ. Again, as a trend forecaster in terms of mechanics, I sometimes go back to what I would call an old trend. And the old trend here was where we started talking about a shift from the importance of IQ versus EQ. And when I went back to dig into this is going on almost 30 years of popularization, let's call it that, trend growth. And I was like, I think that we have got to revisit this because these are the skills we need. And I love something else they said in the podcast. They said, please don't call these the soft skills because they
Right.
might be the hardest ones to learn
100%.
and evolve. But you can improve your EQ. There are 5 aspects to it, just for listeners to ground them: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So I won't go into them. I will reveal to everyone, to hold myself accountable, that my mantra and intent for 2023 is around listening. Listening to others more deeply, using that as a path to empathy, and then listening to myself and my intuition. So hold me accountable, this group of people. And it's really because I'm aiming for part of this to improve my own emotional intelligence this year. And so revisiting something that's sort of like something old, then I was like, well, what's new in intelligences right now? And that's where I ran across a book by Albert C. Brooks called From Strength to Strength. And this book I picked up because of the subtitle. And I had read a great article about it in Fast Company, but it's Finding Success, Happiness, and Deep Purpose in the Second Half of Life. No shocker, I'm in the second half of my life. And this resonated with me because I was feeling what he describes in the book is a decline in your fluid intelligence. Your fluid intelligence is what you have at the beginning of your career when you're young. It's when you can learn really fast. You can solve problems without knowing a lot about the context. You're very innovative, energetic. You just have this very wild mind that can tackle things. But about 20 years into your career, like 20 years after you graduate and have like maybe your highest degree, is about the timing that you will start experiencing this decline. A lot of people do not want to accept this as an idea because it is very scary to think I'm in decline. But we all accept this if you think about professional athletes. They know that their fluid intelligence, whether that's bodily or intellectually, declines. For them, it's around 27. But they at least go in accepting this. I don't think we do. Like, no, I'm going to call it normal people.
Right.
Non-professional athletes, just professionals. But you start getting a cognitive decline. Your energy is less. It's harder to learn. And you have to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard to kind of keep up with the young people who are in their fluid intelligence. And I was like, oh my gosh, like head on the table, big fat ugh in my thought bubble. But he goes on to say, like, don't lose hope because there is another curve that you can kind of jump onto. And it's what you mentioned. It's the crystallized intelligence curve. This is reliant on your ability to synthesize ideas, teach others, recognize patterns. And so in a way, what you do is overlay all of your wisdom and you can onto the situations. So just think about, as you know, I know for me, as I've been a leader now for leading a company as a chief officer for going on 8 years, what I'm doing is so different than when I was building the trends practice. Building the trends practice was full of fluid intelligence. What I do now, even as the chief growth officer, is full of crystallized intelligence. I'm in a situation, I see the pattern unfolding with the dynamics of the people in the room, and I'm able to go to the team and go, handle it like this. Here's what's occurring. And that is equally valuable than being the smartest person in the room and knowing where the future's going. Because I'm like, here's how to keep this client happy and how we're going to have success. So great content and great, like, managing the people and the dynamics. And that's what the crystallized intelligence is. And you have to kind of have to rethink your identity. And so I'm just kind of thinking, like, I'm in my 50s and I'm rethinking things. And I mean, I guess another way to say it is you also have to change your Scooby snacks, you know, like the things that gave you, like, you're like, woo, these are my treats. Here's how I get validated. That changes too.
Yeah. 100%. I just love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. Like I said, I think it's very, very important in this field in particular, when things are constantly changing, evolving, trending, just to know that you absolutely have value in your experiences and your wisdom. And when you bring that to the table, you have equal value, because we absolutely need both. We need both sides of it. So it's such a good point. Another great point from your talk that I wanted to kind of hop on to, because this is another pitfall for a lot of us A-type, hardworking, ambitious women, is that we need to reassess our relationship with productivity. What does this mean for our 9 to 5, or in most cases, I see you all, I know, 7 to 9 culture? I was there at one point. And what role does rest play in our workplace in the future?
Yeah,
so there were questions in there.
Yeah. One of the trends that we've been seeing that's showing up like across social media, a lot in editorials, magazines, New York Times, et cetera, is this thing that's kind of emerged, which is like, it's called the 5 to 9. And it's almost like a productivity trend where now people are feeling this stress to be as productive between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. or 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. And like, instead of seeing all of these calendar, how amazing I am, whatever, people are showing how productive they are at home. And I mean, like amazing videos of like how to get to ground zero, in your house. And, it's almost like laundry videos or something. But I'm kind of in a proponent phase right now about how much rest we really need. And there are two great things here. One was around this woman named, her name's Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, excuse me. And she had a great TEDx talk on the 7 types of rest. And it really breaks down, instead of just saying like, it's not just sleep. Sleep is one part of it, but sleep and rest are separate things. But she's like, what type of rest do you really need? Is it mental rest? Is it social rest? Is it spiritual rest? And she's got 7 types. So to me, that was a good way to sort of like break it down, to really ask myself, like, am I overcommitted by spending too much time with people? Do I need to convert a little more? Am I giving too much to people? Do I need to say no and have better boundaries? So I thought that was really good for breaking it down. But I think there's one step further that I found really fascinating, was this woman named Tricia Hersey, and she's dubbed herself the nap bishop. And she has something called the nap ministry. And she's got a philosophy, a manifesto. She leads napping sessions, but she is really encouraging rest, daydreaming. And she even says, and she's coming from a tradition because of her race, where she's saying rest is resistance.
Yes, I love it.
Like, she is unraveling the history of the expectation to work to exhaustion that's found deep in the history of her ancestry. And she's like, rest is non-negotiable and you must do that. And I just found this to be just such a beautiful take, because it combines what's happening in the social justice movement with self-care, and just broadened the context into something so metaphysical that I just was like, this woman is I don't think she means to speak to me.
Right.
And even more, one of the things that she said in this article that I read, it was in the New York Times again. And she said, my personal scorecard is, she's like, I judge myself by how many naps I take in a week, how many times I told someone no, how many boundaries I upheld. And she said, to me, that's justice, liberation, and freedom. And I just was like, that blew my mind. I'm like, what if my personal scorecard changes from a to-do list or, getting to the end of the week and calendaring, or that laundry ground zero I was talking about it that shows up in these
whatever that is. I'm
like,
don't even cute.
Let's talk about how many times I said no. How many times did I keep a boundary? Like this, I thought this was great. And it made me rethink my relationship with productivity.
Yeah, no, 100%. She's on my wish list for additional podcast guests in 2023. So if anybody is connected to her, send her my way. But yes, 100%. I think that
Yeah.
inherited trauma is absolutely real. And for all the extra labor, marginalized people have had to give over the years, and just the effort in trying to navigate this world, being underrepresented, it is exhausting. And I think I love that flip of, my value is not in my productivity. My value is how I protect my time, space, and provide myself the rest that I need. And when people are saying that they're burnt out, it's like, well, what are you doing to provide yourself rest? Sleep hygiene. I was in 2022. I went and overhauled my whole sleep hygiene, and it was life-changing. I go to bed and I wake up about the same time every day. I really focus on my quality of sleep. I adjusted things in my room. And it really helps me show up whole to wherever I need to be. And also to, like you said, not just meet the moment, be present. It's so hard when your mind is in a million different places and you're letting yourself be consumed with busy, that when you have these beautiful moments called life happening in front of you, you want to be there for those. So I think so much about all of this is just, I don't know, really beneficial and really important. Outside of the trap of productivity, you also reference some recent observations written by another book and another author I'd love to chat with sometime, Carolyn Chen, who wrote Work, Pray, Code. And Julie, who's on here with us as my wing woman, actually has the book with her and had just started reading it as well. The philosophy and the idea of this book to me is very fascinating. Again, I am a little bit obsessed with organizational psychology and things like that, hence being an Adam Grant fan. But how do we fall into this trap of seeing work as, because I've been this person, and this whole self-fulfillment, spiritual, emotional, and transcendental?
Yeah. Let me jump around a little bit on this one.
That's
So
fine.
one is, I was having a feeling in 2020, 2021, and even in 2022, that what was needed from me as a leader was so different. So half the equation, I think we talked about with the EQ, right? The other half, though, is I was like, never in my life had I felt more like a therapist or a guru as a leader. And I'm not trying, I'm being sort of pithy, but not. But I just felt like I had spent my whole career helping people grow through functional mastery, meaning teaching people how to do trends, both as a professor in university settings and also coaching and guiding teams to get better at their work product. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, I felt like in these past 3 years, what was asked of me was so different. It was more emotional, holding space for people, helping guide people into these things that would help them more, like what we'd already discussed it, boundaries, rest, helping them manage sort of the unmanageable that life had become. Mm-hmm. I ran across this editorial in the New York Times, the one that you're mentioning, and basically I think the title of it is something like, when your work becomes your religion, there's a problem, or something. That's I think the title of it. I can't remember. And I was blown away, because you're right. It's a woman, Carolyn Chen. She's a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and she did over 100 interviews with employees, mostly Silicon Valley workers. Mm-hmm. And her findings were so striking. And I get it that this might be a Silicon Valley, like a little bit of an enclave with a zeitgeist happening within it. But it really resonated with me that people had put so much of their self-worth and their identity into work. But she takes it to another level by saying that modern workplaces, especially now that we're in these mission-driven, purpose-driven companies, mm-hmm. have started even co-opting. They don't just take the place of religion, but they're co-opting the form of religion. They're using language like missionaries would use when they would go in to convert people in other countries. And, then I, again, popping around a little bit, I was like, oh my gosh, I watched that show, We Crashed, on Apple Plus, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, We Crashed, which chronicled, fictionalized a little bit, WeWork and their demise.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the WeWork mission was to elevate the world's consciousness. And I'm like, wait, I thought that was the Dalai Lama's job, not a co-working space.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was like the greatest manifestation of like, here's her research and what she's saying. And then I watched this show, which I think is based on truth. And I was like, yes, these modern companies are asking people to join them like a religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's a yin and yang. Like, I think we give it up and we put all our meaning in that basket, and also just realize in order to be purpose driven, a lot of people are building companies this way.
Right.
And I just thought that was fascinating. And then she goes further to say the impact of this, which is she's like, when she got in there, the pattern she saw was a social ecosystem where workplaces have taken on the institutional functions of religion, fulfilling employees' social and spiritual needs for identity, belonging, meaning, purpose, and transcendence. And this is hollowing out our faith communities, civic associations, and it's weakening our democracy, because people are they're not just putting their identity into it, but all of their energy.
Yeah.
When they build community, it's all at work. When they are activist, it's all at work. Instead of being like, I'm at work and then I'm also doing this, working on somebody's political campaign, helping the library do XYZ, or, actually, religion and belief is at an all-time low. Churches are struggling. They're having to redefine themselves. And so my thing is like, work cannot be your church.
Right.
You have got to find, and I'm not trying to be religious here at all, but I am advocating that we take more time for the metaphysical and the transcendent in our lives. And that's why I'm saying we have to meet the moment. How are we present to ourselves and our higher selves?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, given so much between turnover and layoffs that are happening, it's like, what happens? These people, that are going through this, it's such a bigger loss and mourning process for them when their identity is tied up in their employment status. And it really shouldn't be. You're not living a whole life. You've given up a lot of and abandoning yourself by doing that. And, again, I speak from experience, having, done that and been that for so many years. And it took until I was in my 40s nearly, and honestly finding Together Digital in the community to then realize, and having children, I would also add that on there, that, there's so much more out there in the world, within nature, within experiences, within other people outside of my four walls of my office that really deserve my time, attention, and devotion, in which I can find a lot more purpose. I do kind of wonder, it makes me think of another question though, like, how do you see this as a trend that, it is something that employers are trying to fill that need so that they gain more loyalty? Or is it the employees are the ones that are asking work to be representational or more like self-fulfillment at work kind of a thing?
What I believe is happening is a little bit of both. I guess what I'm saying, like, not to hedge, but I'm going to hedge. I actually find, I'll speak for myself and my own company. We as a company have worked really hard to meet the moment, meaning way more open conversations, not about work. But like every time something big happens in the world, the next week have an all company meeting to discuss it. Just to have it out in the air, to air it. Regardless of what everybody believes, it's just like, how do we talk to each other? And so we did it after George Floyd's death, after the insurrection. So anytime anything big happens, we eyeball each other and go, how are you doing? Unprecedented.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have done that before the pandemic. So we are trying to create a lot more space for that vulnerability, for tough conversations, Next week, our conversation is going to be on gender. So even when something big isn't happening, we still plan regular conversations to say, let's talk about the things, all the things, justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, all of those, how to bring people together. So we are definitely a changed company in terms of that. So I think, yes, are we trying to be more open, trying to give people the tools that they can even use in their lives? You know, I don't know about other people, but we had meditation sessions, virtual sound journeings. So things that I would associate with my outside life, my outside woo-woo, yoga stuff, is being offered by employers. So I think what I would say is we're offering those things, trying to give tools, but I don't see what we're doing in our company is saying we're not turning it into a codified set of ethics and religious beliefs that go along with it. We're just like, here are tools, but we're not making it but we're not creating the cult that goes with it. So I guess that would be my answer. Is I think the trend is companies are trying to give people more tools. They're trying to bring more heart. But I think where I'm trying to keep the make sure we don't cross the line is by making it feel like you can't have those unless you've bought into some set of beliefs. We still have values, of course, and a purpose, but I don't know. It's a thin line, I think.
Okay. Awesome.
What do you think?
I mean, it's so weird having been kind of within cultures and companies that do feel, and even kind of skewed, honestly, religious, and not feeling like I fit the mold. However, always trying to be the person within that culture or organization that creates that space for everyone else, which is probably exactly how and why I ended up where I am now, doing what I do now. And I think it is partially one, because what is happening within society. But then I also do believe that like people are asking, if you're going to ask 40 hours a week of me, which is more time I spend with my family and the majority of my waking hours, you need to provide me with some more sense of fulfillment other than I just come in, punch out. And I think it's also a generational trend too. I mean,
completely.
Our parents grew up thinking, this is a job. I stay at the company for decades and decades because that's the loyalty thing. That's the loyal thing to do. I stay in one place and then I retire well. Whereas, younger generations are definitely going from one place to the next because they are in search of something. They are in search of something to make them whole. And what they don't realize is that it's not always going to be what you do for a living. It's going to be what you do to live, like outside of that. So I think it's just an interesting tension. I think companies are doing it in response again to what's been happening within society. But then I also, because I believe that people are asking for it and demanding it. So I worry that it might lead us into more down that path of just kind of our whole self at work. Like everybody says, I want to show up whole. I love that idea. But I don't know that it has to be work. Where I show up whole. That is just me though.
I mean, it's in the camp of, I feel like we're in a great, to match the great awkward, we're in the great figuring it out. And I think the thing that we're both getting at is like, we're in a giant phase of becoming. Like I love being. And I think that's what we're saying is like, make sure you take time every week just to be a human being, not a human giving or human doing. But also we're in a giant becoming phase. Like I know I'm becoming something else right now. So just like, what, seriously, wait for it. Cause I'm waiting for it too. Who am I going to be in another year or so? So anyway, Amy, let's ask some questions. Maybe if we got a couple more minutes.
We got a couple minutes for the audience to ask some questions. Absolutely. Yeah, because this has been fascinating and I 100% we could talk about this forever. I think
yes, completely.
All very fascinating from a cultural and societal standpoint. And just, I think another thing too is like, automation. As people are seeing jobs becoming automated, it makes them fearful for so many reasons. And again, I think just this whole shift of your purpose being your profession is like a must-have. It's just like an interesting notion. And I'm curious to see over the next decade or two if that holds true with all the other things that are changing. So we did get a question in from one of our listeners, Candace. Thanks for asking. We love when people ask, what advice do you have for freelancers regarding websites? Is Upwork a good idea? This is a great question too, because gig economy and trying to find freelance work outside of just work. Yeah.
I believe in our company that we occasionally tap into Upwork. We do have a lot of freelancers. I think, I don't know. I'm not an expert at where to put your stuff. But I guarantee you that Amy has a great channel somewhere in her Together Digital Slack that is probably the place where I'd point you. I'd say though, I was a freelancer in one phase of my life, and I think it's so exciting because of the autonomy and the amount of control you have over your time and how much money you can make. But it does require a lot of discipline and boundaries, just because you could end up taking on so much because you see the pie, the pie in the sky.
Yeah, that is great advice. And 100%. We have a couple of channels on Slack for our members to leverage. We have a freelance job board, which is constantly being populated by positions and opportunities that either members are looking to hire for them, like women themselves, or know of the hiring manager for those particular roles. And then we have an entrepreneur solopreneur channel as well that has been really flourishing because, again, the economy is shifting and changing. Women aren't finding the kinds of companies and cultures that feel inclusive to them. So they're starting their own businesses. And like you said, you see the whole pie and that can feel very overwhelming. And so 100% agree with you, Valerie. It takes a certain amount of discipline to understand what is the balance of working in the business versus working on the business. I mean, even for me, speaking personally as a relatively green entrepreneur, leaning into growth and sales and pipelines and new revenue and streams of income, as you've asked, as your follow-up question, Candace, it is a challenge, but you need to look for help, ask for help, find mentors and support. I have a couple of really great mentors as well that have really helped me sort of always kind of come back up to that 30,000 foot view, because when you are a freelancer, you're often multifaceted. So you probably feel like you have to do all the things, and you can't always. So
I have not read this book. So, but I would recommend it in any way. It's called Profit First. And I think it is a great entrepreneur, solopreneur way to set up your business to make sure you're making money. And I heard about this book when I was taking a flower arranging business summit. Like flower arranging is one of my hobbies.
Love
and I was
it.
like, I wonder, I'm a learner. I wanted to go deeper. And, what I found in that community was so many great tools to help those people run their businesses better. So that's one thing I might put as an entrepreneurial business book. And then I do want to circle back on one thing you said, Amy, because I always like to tease whatever's on my mind. That I haven't done yet. So like this whole talk came from me telling you what I was thinking about, and I had no idea about it. And you're like, I like that, do that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to like research it and find out what this is. So this is my next thing. I was reading, this was at the end of the book, Strength to Strength. And he started talking about the idea of there are two, and I'm going to air quotes this, two schools of thought. You must find meaning in your work, or find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Are those two schools? And he's like, one of this is saying it better be purpose and meaning. The other one is passion and enjoyment. And I had never thought about it, that those two things were separate. And of course, someone's knocking on my door right now in total COVID fashion. But he said the intersection of those two things is finding work that's deeply interesting. So that's what I'm going to pick up next.
That's great. Yeah.
Idea, because it's where we were leaving off with purpose, meaning, all of this, because
Yeah.
I'm like, I know for a fact, I am more in the enjoyment and passion camp.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, is this a way for me to find more meaning, is to get that deeply interesting intersection? And so this is just a concept I'm going to play with coming up. So I'm going to leave it there for you and the listeners.
Love it.
And say, this is what's on my mind and where I'm going to go next.
Super exciting. As always, Valerie, I love the way your mind works and the way you can bring so much, just great ideas together. So you've shared a lot of great resources. Julie, you were absolutely fantastic in finding all the links to all the books and all the articles. We will be sure to include them. And she's like the best Googler ever. I'm just saying. We will have them included in the show notes for all of you who are listening to our podcast as well. Valerie, thanks for helping us kick off our second season of the podcast so well. I'm so glad you're here to join us.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, everyone. I will see you all next week. Thanks again, everyone. Bye.
Bye.